Here's an image from the rear camera for a bit better of a contact
Very
with skin.
Whew, man, that is an experience. That really is an experience. But there's a lot to unpack with the Apple Vision Pro. So if you're joining us for the very first time, Thunder E here from Board at Work. Thank you for watching this video on the channel, and definitely hit the subscribe button. So we have the Apple Vision Pro. I pre-ordered it, it's here. What is that experience? Now, I will be honest with you guys, I've been using this for the last 5 hours today. So when you're watching this video, this is just straight out picking up my device, doing the unboxing. If you want to check it out, it's on the channel. Seeing all the things in the box and then just using it all the way. So the very first thing I'll tell you is the setup. Setup is pretty simple and straightforward. You've seen other videos from people like Brian Tong, iJustine. The setup process is pretty straightforward. Now, when it comes to using it, this is where I think we should start talking about what the design choices are from Apple. The device itself is heavy. I'll just put it that way. It feels heavy. For me, within the first 5 minutes of using it, it felt heavy. And that was because I was using the Solar Strap, which is the main strap that Apple kind of showcased at the event. Now, for full disclosure, I did mention when I did the demo at DubDub that it didn't feel heavy. Again, that was not a final unit, so it's a bit different there. That being said though, that strap just doesn't work for me. I went with the strap with the overhead band, which is a little bit better, but it's still not as good as something like, say, the strap on the Meta Quest 3. Now, speaking of the Meta Quest 3 to this, I'm gonna do a video comparing that fully, but just design-wise, you can see the design differences there between both of them. And also the Quest 3 just weighs lighter. So weight is the first issue that I encountered. Definitely try and use a band that fits you best, because that's something that's gonna be really important. The one thing about this device is it rests on your face, right here in the front, on the bridge of your nose and on your cheekbones. So you're going to feel it quite a bit. And again, to me, the weight is the biggest issue that I've experienced. But okay, taking that aside, how is it? Now, when you jump into the world of the Apple Vision Pro, you're greeted with this interface that's very familiar. You see the Apple apps, you see things like Safari, even Apple TV, things that you know. So it's easy to navigate and move. And once you get the hang of the pinch, honestly, it takes maybe it might take you maybe a minute tops to use it. It's very easy to navigate. Now, some things are not as intuitive as others where the locations are. So the control center is really big because that's where you can do some screen recording. You can also check your battery percentage, all these different things that you have to kind of look up, pinch, and then access to actually get to that function. So again, there's a lot of fine tuning that needs to happen with this device to do that. But when you surround yourself with a bunch of screens and you can hop from one screen to another, it really works out well. And the spatial audio is well mapped to this. So if I'm playing a game here, speaking of gaming, we'll talk about that in a second, and then moving over to, say, a YouTube video, the sound tracks properly and it's coming from the exact direction. So you really enjoy the spatialness of this headset.
Almost found it. Okay, all right. So
Yeah,
we'll get into that. So the first thing I want to talk about is the design, right? So it looks exactly the same as the S23 Ultra, which looked exactly the same as the S22 Ultra. Now, I think, I've been seeing this a lot in the comments. I'm not hugely bothered about it because I still think it's a really good design. I think the biggest change here is that we've got titanium, right? So Apple had titanium for the iPhone 15 Pro Max.
Now, how's the field of view? Field of view is smaller than I would expect, but still looks really good because it is sharp. I mean, it is basically a 4K display there. And when you're watching content on there, it really looks good. And it's a very, very fun experience. Some of the things that, Apple showcased, and even just a quick demo of like that dinosaur coming in, felt really impressive. Those are kind of the AR tools that I definitely liked with this, and I think made a lot of sense. Now, personas. That's something that we've seen creators like Marquez, Justine, Brian create their persona. So I made my persona, and it kind of looks like me, honestly. But I also did a call with Danny, and his persona sort of looks like him, but it looks like him from Dynasty Warriors from like the PS2 or PS3, something like that. Not good. Very stiff and rigid. Mine also feels the same way, but it's a beta. I don't blame them for this or anything. I'm just saying that that's what it definitely looks and feels like. So you kind of get that idea that it's very stiff because it can't really map in real time your facial expressions. It's just trying to mimic that for you. But again, it's a good representation. And Danny said something really interesting to me during our call. He said that if someone has never met you in person and this is the first way they saw you, and then they meet you in person, the persona really gives a better representation of how you look as opposed to the other way around. So I kind of understand it from the aspect where if you've always seen the avatar and you see the person, you're like, oh yeah, you kind of look like Avatar. It gives me, I now know who you are. Now, the other aspects of this device that have to do with just the keyboard, communications and things like that. I've heard people talk about the keyboard in different ways. To me, I think the floating keyboard works really well. For me, it does. And there are two ways to input. You can go ahead and type on that keyboard, but using just your two index fingers. That's just the fastest way. Or you can look at the keys and of course, just pinch. That I prefer using the pinch just to put in passwords and things like that. But if I want to type, I use the keyboard. You can also use Siri for voice commands as well, if you use Siri at all. Now, spatial video is something that was quite interesting. I got some from Brian. For some reason, I just couldn't play it properly, but I'll put them here for you. But I also recorded one myself, and I did like the immersive view as well. It looked really nice, very solid. I think it kind of feels like a memory, or you're diving back into something that you